What up, guys? This will be our first episode of Standard Meta Breakdown. What? So, if you guys have been watching for a while, you could have seen all of the modern meta breakdown that we've been doing since February? No, that seems accurate, actually. February. So we've been going for a while, and you can see cats in the background. So we've been doing modern for at least the modern meta breakdown for months. Months. And I played a little bit of standard previous go round. I love playing black green energy. Did get to go to GPDC, didn't do as well as I would have liked, but I figured, you know what, there's some sweet decks in standard. Pirates, dinosaurs, not all of them are seeing play, but that's okay. Cool, sweet creatures, there's some sweet decks out there, there's a variety. One of the things that I did notice when I went to DC is that even though you see a lot of decks particularly doing really well, there's still a lot of decks that you face. And when I played, I faced a different deck every single round. Now we lost all those Eldrazi, we lost all the stuff rotated out from Shadows over Innistrad, that block, the Battle for Zendikar block rotated out with the introduction of Ixalan. So we got to see some cool new stuff added in. I figured to start out the standard meta breakdown, we should talk about a deck that existed pre-Ixalan, and just kind of pretty much nothing from it rotated. It actually got a buff from a reprinting of a spell. So I'm going to talk about three different decks. They're the same deck, just slight variations between the two. Talk a little bit about kind of how the deck works, maybe some ways to kind of deal with it, that sort of thing, going forward. So if this is your first time tuning in for the meta breakdown stuff, make sure you guys are following, subscribing, all that kind of good stuff. Let me know what particular decks you'd like to discuss next, because there's a lot of really sweet decks in standard that I'm looking forward to covering for you guys to be able to see. Now, this does not mean that we are going to stop doing modern meta breakdown. That will still be taking place Thursdays. So the end of the week will be for modern, beginning of the week will be for standard, and then the weekend is usually when I'll be uploading other videos for you guys to be able to enjoy. So let's jump into it. You clicked on this video because you want to learn a little bit more about the deck. Rumunap Red, if you will, the red deck in standard. Like if you're going to be playing red, and you don't want to splash any other colors, like you're like, Teamer seems great, but I don't want to spend all this money on these Teamer cards where I can just buy this relatively cheap, not, relatively overall, depending on what you might have. So we'll talk about the deck, get into it, get going with our discussions for you guys to be able to enjoy. So first off, let's take a look. Again, we're going to start off with Tad's list because, he got second place. It makes the most sense to sit here and discuss his list. So we'll go over all the cool ins and outs of the deck. So Rumunap Red gets its name, of course, from Rumunap Ruins there. Sweet card. Taps for colorless, or you pay 1, get a red to your mana pool, pay 4, deal 2 damage to each opponent by sacking a desert. Cool, right, makes sense. The rest of the deck's just full of red stuff. But if you looked at right at the beginning, guys, you got to see the spell that kind of helped buff the deck up, right? We now get our Lightning Strike back. Woohoo! Yay, Lightning Strike. Pay 2, deal 3 damage to target creature or player. So having that extra burst at the face is pretty nice. Having Shock is great. You can deal 2 damage to creature or player. Cool. But Lightning Strike is just better. Right, I'll pay 1 extra mana to deal 1 extra damage to either creature or player. Yeah, that seems great. So that's really nice that they got reprinted. And you do see a lot of the lists now going, sweet, I'm going to be trying to jam in as many of the Lightning Strikes as I can now that this is back in standard. The other spell that we see most often in these kind of main list is Abrade, which you guys should be familiar with. Again, that's our deal 3 damage to a creature or destroy an artifact, which is nice. It's very relevant, both of those abilities on the card, so very sweet to see. Now, the main focus of the deck is creatures. There's 23 in the list, so we will go over those and discuss those. But before we get to that, we have our last non-creature spell to talk about, and that's Chandra, Torch of Defiance here. The only Planeswalker that does see play in this list, because mono red, why would we not run this? Plus it can generate card value, help ramp out stuff if maybe you're trying to go for like a Glorybringer play, or it can just kill off a creature. So all the modes are very relevant. It's going to be rare that you neg 7 get the ultimate on Chandra, but hey, we can discuss it there. So real quick, 4 cost, 4 loyalty, +1, exile the top card of your library. You can cast that card. If you don't, Chandra Torch of Defiance deals 2 damage to each opponent. So it's just say, hey, I'm going to uptick. I might have tapped out to play Chandra, but at least I get to deal 2 damage to you. Or I have, a Lightning Strike and a Braid, something like that in my hand. You know what? I'll +1 her, get 2 red mana, and just shoot you down or kill that creature or something like that. -3, deal 4 damage to target creature. So very nice. Alright, the creatures. We basically can lump it into, 2 categories almost. I guess you can have 3 based on how you want to brace it out. But really the first category I want to talk about is our unblockable side of things. Okay? And here's the big ones that pop up, right? Our Uncrop Crasher here, and our Earthshaker Kenra. So Uncrop Crasher is kind of our high-end creature cost-wise of 3. We try not to go above that if we can help it, with the exception of Glorybringer, right? Glorybringer just kind of messes with that. Hazoret costs 4 as well, but like as creatures that we want to be playing early on that have a big impact to let us push for damage, we try not to go too far above 3, with the other 2 exceptions I was talking about. It does have haste, so it's 3/2. If you exert it, target creature can't block this turn. So that does have some relevance going forward here. If you know your opponent has only 2 creatures or something, or 1 creature, you can exert and just say, nope, we are not going to let you be able to block. Earthshaker Kenra, also one of our unblockable aspects of it. Another 2/1 with haste. Again, this sort of haste thing, this being able to attack, burst down our opponent, is kind of the name of the game with this deck. Now it is a 2/1 for 2. When it enters the battlefield, target creature with power less than or equal to Earthshaker's power can't block this turn. Okay, 2 power. Alright, that seems kind of relevant early on. Not so great later on, but if you're stuck in a long grindy game, 6 mana is possible for you to be able to eternalize it, bring it back as a 4/4, and now any creature that has a power of 4 or less can't block this turn. So you do have that extra aspect, and of course, it does have haste, so that is great. Again, so those do have some extra interactions, and really you need to be aware of that playing against this deck. Is these are the 2 creatures that prevent me from being able to block. I need to have some way to kind of deal with these guys as much as possible. Next, we've got kind of our another set here. Boom, boom, boom. Bomat Courier and Hazoret. So Bomat Courier has to be included in this sort of category of like gain card advantage, Hazoret lose card advantage in a way. It's a weird category I've put together for this one. But so everyone should be familiar with Hazoret, right? If you're playing any version of Rumunap Red, you need a playset of her. She's just great, right? So 5/4 for 4, indestructible, and haste. But you cannot attack or block unless you have 1 or fewer cards. Alright, makes sense. But don't worry, you can discard a card and deal 2 damage to each opponent. So there is that aspect going on. You just start flinging those extra cards in your hand, or just use those spells, play those creatures, dump your hand essentially to play Hazoret. Then you can push in for 5 damage, no problem. Plus, if it gets grindy or something like that, Hazoret has a continual 2 damage you can do each turn, right? Well, okay, I can't attack or block this turn. It's gummed up. Neither of us can really swing in. Well, I'll discard this 1 card, deal 2 damage to you. Bomat Courier is an amazing card. A lot of red decks dump their hands, right? They are basically playing the spells, playing the creatures as soon as they get them, and they're left with nothing left. Even with Hazoret here, we see that, hey, you can't attack unless you have 1 or fewer cards. So it is rewarding you for getting rid of cards in your hand. A lot of red decks stumble in that regard and cannot finish a game if it goes too long. Bomat Courier can help you with that because you do have that option of getting more cards back. So here's a 1/1 with haste. Okay, a 1/1 for 1 with haste doesn't seem too exciting. Why are we playing this? Well, we get card advantage off of it in the sense that whenever he attacks, exile the top card of your library face down. Then you can pay a red, discard your hand, sack Beaumont Courier, all those exile cards now go to your hand. So you get this down turn 1, and you get in for like 3 points of damage, 2 points of damage, already 2 cards under there. Cool. When he attacks and maybe he's going to block or become blocked, you can just pay 1, sack it, and guess what? You just get a whole new hand, essentially. It's rare that you're going to be getting like 5 cards off it, but it is quite possible. It has happened. You can feel great when you're sitting there with 3 cards under it, and you know you've dumped out the rest of your hand. Here's your lands, here's your other creatures. Maybe you've lightning strike something, maybe you've shocked something, who knows? And now you're like, well, I haven't got a Hazoret yet. I'm just kind of stuck right now. I've got maybe 1 card left in my hand, but this Beaumont Courier has 3 cards under it. I'll attack, get another card exiled, and then sack it before he gets blocked and destroyed. Basically reloading your hand and ready to keep going with the game. So Beaumont Courier is very key in this deck in that regard, being able to reload and play kind of later on. Now, there are 2 other creatures that are in this list here. Kari Zev, of course, our Skyship Raider, makes that sweet 2/1 monkey. You know, how can you not be happy about this? But it's a 1/3 first strike menace. Doesn't seem that great, a 1/3, okay, but you're pretty much always going to be able to deal damage with her because she is a 1/3 with menace. First strike is relevant too. The making a monkey each turn is also a way to kind of push for extra damage because that monkey is tapped and attacking. And maybe it's a big thing that's like a 4/4 and your lightning strikes or shocks can't kill him right away, so maybe them blocking that monkey can help push for the damage there. So, you know, just a little shenanigans with that. The other cool thing that is now on this list are Soulscar Mage. 1/2 for 1 red with prowess. Love those prowess creatures. But we have this little extra thing to deal with creatures more, right? Hey, you might be playing against one of those Snicky Snake decks out there, and you can say, oh, that's a nice looking snake you've got there where you would get additional counters placed on you. Cool. I'm going to use my Soulscar Mage, play him down, and then I'm going to lightning strike or shock your creature. And normally that would be dealing non-combat damage, so that means it would put -1 counters on that creature, and your snake doubles the amount of -1 counters. So nice little interaction that you guys will maybe not have thought about, but a great way to help kill off creatures. That's kind of the way it's in here if you're playing against those sort of energy-based decks that can push for extra. Plus, a 1/2 for prowess is pretty nice, right? You're going to be abrading, you're going to be shocking, you're going to be doing these things, and you should be able to push in for at least 2 points of damage with this guy. Otherwise, hey, here's a 1/1, assist me in killing creatures, is kind of how Soulscar Mage. Clear the way for the rest of my guys that really matter, like the Earthshaker, the Hazoret, the Beaumont Courier, those sort of things. This is your job, Soulscar Mage, so good on you. Sideboard stuff real quick. For Glorybringer, I mean, the card's great, right? Flying Haste, 4/4, costs 5 though. You can exert it. If you do, deal 4 damage to target non-dragon creature and opponent controls. Cool. Makes sense. Want 4 of them in there. That seems good. Harsh Mentor, costs 2 for a 2/2 whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land. If it isn't a mana ability, this guy deals 2 damage to that player. Nice little catch-all for some of those interaction stuff. Activating ability, Walking Ballista. I'm going to do 1 damage, remove a counter, do 1 damage, remove a counter, do 1 damage. Well, in order to do that, I'll have to take 2. Ouch, that hurts. Chandra's Defeat. Hey, mirror matchup. Here's a nod to you, right? Chandra's Defeat, 1 red, deal 5 damage to target red creature or red planeswalker. If that permanent is a Chandra planeswalker, you can discard a card if you do draw a card. So just kind of a nod to the mirror matchup. I am looking at you, I'm ready to deal with you kind of thing. PNLR, sweet. Hey, we're going to make a Colorless Thopter for 3 mana, 2/2 guy. I can be able to sack an artifact. Target creature can't block this turn. Again, having that extra ability, nod to Earthshaker, nod to On-Crop Crasher. We're going to play this kind of unblockable game. Extra Chandras in the sideboard. Hey, we need long grindy stuff. Need some extra kind of draw stuff. Need some extra damage. Chandra's great for those kind of longer games. We're going to have those in there. And then an extra mountain. I like the extra mountain. You think the way it's set, Glory Bringers in here cost 5. You know, Bomat Courier is going to be getting cards off the top of your library. You're going to be throwing stuff away with Hazoret. Having that extra mountain, if you are going to be playing Glorybringer, can be kind of relevant. So I do like that. I mean, you might look through your list and go, yeah, I don't really care about having an extra mountain in the board. That's just like a waste of a spot, right? But it actually is pretty smart. So did want to talk about the first list here of Tad. It's very much a straightforward style of play. It worked out really well. 23 creatures, 12 spells, 1 Planeswalker main board, had 3 in the board. We have a couple other lists, very similar, just slight variations on numbers, and you will see there are those flex spots that we're going to start talking about. Real quick, if I didn't talk about all the lands, so 24 lands, like I said, 14 mountains, 4 ruins for our Rumunap, 2 scavenger grounds, 4 sun-scorched desert. So desert's nice because deals 1 damage to target player, adds for a colorless, don't care really, it's that extra point to push against my opponent. I can also use it with my Rumunap to sack a desert. Scavenging grounds, hey, I heard there's this Esper Gifts list running around. I don't know if you're aware of this, and you're messing with your graveyard. We're just going to put a stop to that right now. So, and guess what? It's a desert, so you can sack it. But yeah, there we go. For the first list, second list real quick, guys, going through. You can see decrease number of spells, increase number of planeswalkers. Jumped up to 2 Chandra, adjusting only to 2 Abrades this time. 4 lightning strikes, 4 shocks, because hey, I always want to be able to do damage to your face, right? This one cannot. Less artifacts running around now. Cool, we'll work with that. Again, you'll see kind of our 4 Hazoret here, 4 Soul Scar Mage, and our 3 Karizev. Makes sense. This is what we saw last time. But I did want to make a nod to this list in particular because we've got a dinosaur in here. Not only is it a dinosaur, but it's a really good dinosaur to play. Alright? So, 3 mana for a 3/3 menace. Players can't gain life. Have you played against this blue-white deck? I don't know if you're familiar with it. You know, approach the second sun, gain 7 life. It's pretty good. And you've bursted them down a lot, maybe. It's gotten kind of grindy. Well, let's just put a stop to them gaining any life. That'll be nice. Also, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, this will deal 1 damage to that creature's controller. So if you're playing against maybe another red deck and they're dropping down a lot of creatures, our lovely dinosaur here can start pinging away. Pew, pew, pew. 1 by 1. So that's a nice little nod. I really like that idea. I think that the red deck should at least have this in the sideboard, if not main. If you can't fit it in the main, you should find a spot for it in the sideboard because I do think it does add quite nicely to the list. Sideboard for this one is nice. Like you see, 3 Glorybringer makes sense, but we're having a Harvester. Harvester is nice to kind of keep yourself alive, right? A 3/5, only crews for 1, so it's very easy to get that guy online. And you can be able to get lifelink until end of turn for 1 energy. You get 2 energy just from having this enter the battlefield. So easy way to stay in the game, and it flies. So you can also push for extra damage off it. Hey, we've got another Rampaging in here. So we got 2, 1 main, 1 side. Sand Strangler, pretty cool addition as well. 4 mana for a 3/3 when he enters the battlefield. If you control a desert or if there's one in your graveyard, you can have this guy deal 3 damage to target creature. So a nice little kind of nod. Hey, there might be some annoying creatures that I want to deal with. I'm going to have this as just an extra, right? Another Abrade in there since we shaved down on the ones on the main board. Again, nod to the mirror matchup. Magma Spray is nice for that exile ability. Cool. An extra Chandra here. Scavenging Grounds, we have an extra because we've shaved down to have only 1 main. But still 24 lands. So adding up an extra mountain there. So did want to make a nod really for this list because of our dinosaur. One more list to talk about here. You can see kind of our lists are slowly moving up in creature numbers. So this one has 2 creatures added into it from the previous. The lists are pretty much the same. Like spells, Abrade, Lightning Strike, and Shock. Down to 3. There are no planeswalkers for this list. So this is another route that you can go. They've decided The sideboard's fine for them. If I need them, I'll bring them in. This way I have more creatures. The 2 creatures that have been added, Rigging Runner is kind of the first one. A lot of people have been discussing, does this have a home in this list? After the spoilers came out, 1 red for 1/1 with first strike, but does have that raid ability, so it essentially could be a 2/2 for 1 mana with first strike, which is nice. But then again, I don't think it needs a full playset. You do not want to be playing this turn 1, so you really want to hope that you have a Beaumont Courier, something like that, to play down turn 1. Play this turn 2 after you attack with the Courier. Otherwise, you wait till turn 3 to play this guy, and at turn 3, a 2/2 for 1 mana. Is that really want to be doing it in turn 3? Probably not. So I think trying out 2 seems good if you're going to be playing more creatures and not have all the Chandra's main board. Our other one is our Hellion here. So you might have seen this guy see play in kind of that like red-green energy a while ago now, where it was just like that all in, almost infect style. I'm going to pump up 1 guy, make him really big, and just kill you in 1 turn, essentially. But this is a 3 mana 4/4 for haste. That's a lot of damage on turn 3, right? You get 2 energy when this guy enters the battlefield, and then at the beginning of your end step, sack it unless you pay 2 energy. So you could say, hey, do I want to keep this alive? Yeah, you know what? I think I will. I'll pay that 2 energy. Otherwise, you can say, he did what he needed to do. I'm going to save that energy for using with like my Harvester or something like that. But I like having that 2 in there. You know, again, having your turn 3 be a powerful swing like that is nice. So, you know, if you want to go the creature route, you can. This is a nice way to go about it. By also adding in these guys, we're down to only 3 Hazoret. But maybe that's because, hey, we've got some more stuff that we're going to be trying to play on turn 3. We might have more cards in our hand. Just a little kind of nod to that. Again, Harvester, Glorybringer, our dinosaurs, 3 of them here, rampaging in the sideboard. Chandra's Defeat, only 1. Okay, maybe opting more for the dinosaur helping out in the side against the mirror. Pied Noir is really nice. Again, the ability to make a creature unblockable, or essentially say you can't block with that 1 big guy, is really important. So blasting cannons we'll talk about in a second. Chandra's Torch of Defiance. Hour of Devastation is in here. A nice little way to kind of play those longer grindy games where you need to deal a little bit more damage. Sweltering Suns, 3 damage, or you can cycle it. Really, you're going to want to deal 3 damage. Works really well in the mirror matchup. Alright, Vance's Blasting Cannon. Let's pop over and take a look at that real quick. So, that is one of our new legendary enchantments. Costs 4 mana, though. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile a top card of your library. If it's a non-land card, you can cast it this turn, which is kind of along the lines of the red decks that we'd expect to see. When you cast your 3rd spell in a turn, transform it. Becomes a sweet land where you can just deal 3 damage to a creature or player for 3 mana. Cool. Nice little nod to saying, hey, if it gets grindy, we can kind of do that sort of thing. Now, the deck is aggressive, in your face. You've got to be careful about that. But you notice that, hey, 3 damage, that seems to be as far as I can go, right? Maybe I'll get a Glorybringer out there and I can do 4 damage, okay? Cool. But anything that's got 4 or more toughness, I'm not going to be able to kill off without at least losing a creature in the process. So that is a nice way to combat the deck. You do have access to different enchantments there that might say creatures enter tapped, things like that, gain life. Little ways to go about it, right, to help stay alive. So you have to be aware of kind of what the deck is trying to do. It's basically Fatal Push decks and red decks, right? And that's kind of a big split in somewhat of Standard. Of course, not talking about like the blue-white and some of the other lists out there, but like Fatal Push is a really good card, and it kills pretty much everything this deck has. Now, by running more dinosaurs, by running our Hellion, things like that, getting more 3 drops, it makes it harder for it to start picking off our stuff. But you don't want to make yourself too mid-game oriented, right? You need to have the correct number of low drops too, right? Earthshaker in here, Crasher, Courier, these like 2, 3 That's where you need to be. You don't want to push yourself too far above that. So, be careful. This deck is going to be in Standard for a while. It was in Standard before. You have to be able to beat this list. If you're running red, maybe have a couple of Chandra's Defeat in your board to help you out. Maybe have a couple of Sweltering Suns in there. Whatever you need to do to help you beat the list. You've got to figure out the best way to do it. If you're running black, you've got some sweet removal spells at your disposal. Even white does as well, with some be able to board wipe and stuff like that. Kind of our mass to exile, if you will, the mass path to exile on attacking creatures. So there's ways to kind of go about and interact with this deck. Aethersphere Harvester is a really nice way to do it because, hey, it's a 3/5 with flying. I can push damage. I can get over top. And Lifelink is really nice. Deck has a hard time of keeping up in the later games. It's all about the burst damage. So if you can survive, great. The big thing, you have to have a way to deal with this. If you cannot, you will die if it gets late game. Right? If it gets grindy and we've dragged it out, you've killed a lot of the creatures, the board's gummed up, neither player can swing in. Alright, I'm just going to keep shooting you for 2, shocking you each turn, and put a clock on you that way. And I've probably done enough damage so you're not coming back from that. You have to be careful because more lists are probably going to start running our dinosaur friend here to help deal with that anti-life gain stuff. Plus, dealing extra damage off of him is nice. So just be aware of kind of going forward the things to expect with the list, right? So that is kind of our first episode of Standard Meta Breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of look at Rumunap Red. Did kind of a quick, brief discussion of ways to kind of beat it, things like that. Because Standard's still getting a little bit newer with some of the other lists, and I don't want you guys to be so focused on having your sideboard full of cards for this, because there's so many different decks out there that you have to be able to beat. But let me know what you thought about the video. Let me know what decks you'd like me to cover next, because again, there's so many decks to discuss in Standard right now. But thanks so much for tuning in and watching tonight, guys, and I'll see you guys next game.